January 25th, 2018 was a day that revolutionized the game of football. Vince McMahon reintroduced one of his biggest concepts, the XFL. Today, we bring to you one of our group's biggest concepts. Welcome to the first episode of Our XFL. This is also your XFL. So like our page, leave a comment in the comments section below, and share this podcast with your friends. We thank you for giving us a chance, and we hope you enjoy our coverage of the XFL. Now, my name is Will Porball, and I will be hosting the proceedings tonight. And alongside of me are four bright young minds that will help give me insight. The first one to my right is Mr. Drew Rhea. Drew writes for the Yellow Jacket here at Waynesburg University. Drew, how you doing tonight?
Doing well tonight, Will. How about yourself?
I'm loving life, bud.
Absolutely.
Next one to the right will be Mr. Ed DiOrio, famous actor from Hempfield, sports broadcasting major. Ed, how you doing tonight?
Ready to talk some football, Will.
There you go. The next one down is Mr. Adam Morganti of fame of Freeport High School. Adam, can't talk about Freeport here.
Don't worry, I wasn't planning on it, Will.
How you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing well.
And the one far end is Mr. Dylan Cleveland of Penn Trafford High School. Dylan, welcome to the show. How you doing tonight, bud?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Will.
No, I love you. All right, let's get started with our first topic. Now, a lot of people are asking why Vince McMahon introduced the XFL now. Drew, give me just a little bit of your insight on why you think Vince brought the XFL now.
Well, it's simple here, Will. Right now is the opportune time for the XFL to make its return. You look at the NFL and all the controversy that has surrounded it, especially this year. And I think a lot of fans have felt that the NFL has become too politicized. Now, Vince's main goal here with the XFL is to bring football back to the fans. And I feel like by adding politics into football, it's almost taking it away from the fans. So I think Vince really wants to make a game that's pure football, that's for the fans, that's for America. And I'm really excited to see where he takes this product.
Now, Adam, I know he talked a little bit in the introductory press conference about the national anthem controversy. A couple callers from big sites such as CNN, Sports Illustrated talked about it. What are your opinions on the national anthem controversy, and what do you think the XFL is going to do?
Oh, well, what Vince McMahon said in his opening press conference about the national anthem is that he requires all players to stand for the national anthem before all games, which I think that's a good thing to do because as you saw in the NFL with the whole thing that what Colin Kaepernick started when he kneeled for the anthem, that just blew up the entire internet and the media really blew that out of proportion and he was arguably the most hated player in the NFL, and that wasn't good for the NFL at all. Then more players started kneeling for the anthem, and then it just got out of hand. And I think, especially during the 2016 season, that because of that, ratings started to decline because it seems like after a new player started to kneel for the NHL or for the national anthem, everyone would just make a big deal about it, and that's all the media would talk about. So I think what McMahon wants to do is have all players stand and just take politics out of the game so the media doesn't have to talk about it so much and talk about football instead of the political side of it.
Well, not to interrupt what your next question,
Yeah.
but just to go off of that, you say how McMahon wants to keep everyone standing. I mean, even our president, now granted, this is our president now in 2018, Donald Trump, he openly expressed how he would fire every player if they weren't standing.
Yeah.
If you're not going to listen to the president, I'm sorry. What makes you think they're going to listen to the owner of basically an expansion league that already failed out the first time? It's going to be really, really hard for McMahon to keep this promise as far as trying to keep politics out of this. The reason why politics got into the NFL in the first place is because it's the biggest sporting revenue in America today and around the world. The Super Bowl every year around the world is the most watched event of any television show, network, anything you want to say, award show, anything. It is the biggest draw of attention. And there's a reason for that. So naturally, when you have that many minds all in on one thing, however many opinions are going to come into play.
Yeah.
You know, I'm rooting for him. I don't like it when politics get involved in the sports. I've said it before to you guys outside of this podcast. I'll say it again. It's ridiculous how so many people go to sports as as a getaway from real life, and politics is sure as heck a part of real life as anything. But it's just not what we want to see. And I know McMahon, that's nice to hear as a fan, but I want to see him do it. I don't know how he's going to do it. I'll personally tell him that. I don't know how you're going to do it if you think this league's going to be successful the second time around. But guess what? I'm rooting for the guy.
I know you brought up President Trump, and he's had a big impact on the way that culture has shifted over the last 2-3 years. Do you think President Trump at all is going to get involved with the XFL? Do you think he's going to have even like a slight appearance in the XFL? I'll open it up to any of you guys.
I personally don't think so. I think Vince is going to try to keep it focused on the player, on the fans. That's the motto going into things. And I think if you start pulling in political figures, you're going against the idea of not having politics in football. To back up a little bit though and look at things, reasons why we can't make this political, it's going to hurt the ratings. And quite frankly, that's what killed it the first time. The ratings went down. Look at the NFL. That's what's hurting the NFL. The politics are hurting the ratings. And for this league to have any chance at succeeding, that's what has to be one of the top things on the priority list of things not to let happen.
And I think, too, that with the XFL, there's something about it to where if you're a big nationalist, like a big supporter of, America, that's the XFL compared to the NFL because of the whole politics thing and the whole national anthem, as Adam touched on and Drew did. That's what they're trying to avoid. So bringing the biggest political figure in our country as of right now into play, I don't care what he does, it's just not going to look good because there's always going to be someone who doesn't like him. I know a lot of nationalists that I mentioned, America, a lot of people like that like Trump, but that doesn't mean that everybody does. There's still going to be people that don't, and that's going to kill ratings. And if the XFL wants to compete with the NFL, that's not going to help.
And I think one of the biggest problems was the first time around is they didn't focus enough on the football. They focused on everything else outside of the football. They focused on Vince McMahon going out in the first game of national television going, this is the XFL. He became the focus. The football became the sideshow. He focused on the cheerleaders, the broadcasters. I think I agree with all four of you. For the XFL to have a chance to succeed in this day and age, they have to focus strictly on football.
And the football quality definitely hurt. Some of those games were brutal as far as the turnover margins, the mistakes, the penalties that were made. Obviously, it's going to be different rules than the NFL. That's part of the reason why this game's got to be different. But it can't go away from football because, after all, he's saying we're giving football back to the people.
And we'll get more into the rules in a little bit. So we talked about a little bit of why the XFL is coming back. Now we're going to go into where the XFL will be coming back. In your guys' opinion, what is the number one city for the XFL to go to as of right now? Drew, I'll start with you.
I think right now the best market to target for the XFL would have to be San Diego. I mean, a lot of those fans were very upset when they saw the Chargers move for Los Angeles. And I think right now you have a lot of fans, a fan base, and a venue. They still have the Chargers home field.
Yeah, they still have Qualcomm.
Absolutely. It's still there. So I think that the best market for the XFL to target would be San Diego.
Ed, in your opinion?
I think it's got to be Cleveland. I understand that it's going to be 2 whole years before they still have to compete with the Browns. But, it takes a while to rebuild from 0-16. We all know that. The Browns, by that point, could be going 6-10. They're not going to rebuild that whole team in 2 years. Or at least with the management, the way it's been going as of recent, it's not going to steady up that fast. So I think that there is a big chance that not only could the XFL compete with the Browns as far as attention and revenue, but it's just the NFL, ever since it came back to Cleveland, has never been the same. The Browns, in the last few years they were in Cleveland, they were competitive. Late 80s. Yeah. Late 80s. Belichick was there in the 90s. They were competitive, and then obviously they moved.
Well, the last year that they were in Cleveland in '95, they were predicted to win the Super Bowl by Sports Illustrated. And then when Art Modell moved the team, they fell apart. The only thing that worries me about Cleveland is there are still, even though the team's been putrid for the last 10, 15 years, there are still a lot of diehard Browns fans that will go down with the ship. And they have. You've seen that.
They have. But then again, in my opinion, there's the fans that will throw a parade.
They did.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I know.
So my only concerns about Cleveland is that where would they play, and if this league starts in January, they're obviously going to have to compete with the Cavs. But I think in 2 years, that's going to all depend on the success and where obviously LeBron James goes. Well, we won't get into that much because it's an XFL podcast.
Yeah.
But there are 2 other successful teams of other sports in that town. But I think if you're just trying to compete with the NFL from that standpoint, Cleveland, I mean, you target the weakest link in the chain.
And I think them competing with the Cavs are still going to be, that's going to be wrapping up the regular season right around as the XFL is going into the playoffs. So they'll have that advantage of at least, because usually the Cavs have clinched the playoff spot 60, 65 games in, and those last 15 games are going to be pretty well meaningless.
Oh.
So Cleveland will have that advantage. Adam, what's your opinion, bud?
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I think Cleveland has to be number one city in consideration for an XFL team because, as you mentioned, Will, how passionate some Browns fans are despite how bad they've been over the past decade. But you got to know that Browns fans want a winner. I think if Cleveland gets an XFL team, I think some Browns fans, now I'm not sure how many, they might go to the XFL team instead of the NFL team, depending on how they do, because they want to root for a winner. Because I know, like, a lot of Browns fans, a lot of diehard Browns fans who they're still Browns fans no matter what, and I give them a lot of credit, but they complain all the time because they can just never win. I mean, I feel bad for them. I just feel like if Cleveland gets an XFL team, they'll just give Browns fans a lot of new hope and just hopefully root for a winner and just have a successful team and football team in Cleveland again. I just feel like Cleveland and the XFL would just go together and just give new hope for Browns fans.
We want a winner. We want a winner, not a loser.
And I think we're all 5 of us are from the Pittsburgh region. Cleveland's the exact same city as Pittsburgh. They're blue-collar, hard, 9-to-5 workers that love football. You've seen that in the 80s and the 90s with Cleveland. They love football. So I think you guys are onto something. Dylan, let me get your opinion on this.
I agree with both of those cities, but I want to throw another one out there, Orlando. I think Orlando, I think it's just too good to not. It's an underrated city when it comes to the economy and just everything around that.
Nice stadium too.
And they do have a stadium there that they can play.
Very nice stadium.
It is a nice stadium. I think you got to go there. I know there's some ties there with wrestling and stuff, and again, we want to keep this strictly XFL. But I think if you're Vince McMahon and you have some groundwork set up already, I think Orlando's a no-brainer because they don't have a professional team. Well, they have the Magic, but that's it.
Yeah.
So I think if you put a football team down there, it would be successful.
And I think Orlando did fairly well in the first version in 2001. And like you said, Vince has a lot of connections there. I know we're going to try to keep this strictly to football, but Vince has NXT down there. He has hosted 2 WrestleManias in the last 10 years, so he has the people down there in Orlando. I really like Orlando. Let me throw you guys out one city. Let me get your opinions on that. San Antonio. How well do you think a football team would do down there?
Absolutely. I love the idea of San Antonio. I think a lot of those fans, they're very, they're all about the Spurs down in San Antonio. So I think if you give them a football team, they're going to be just as passionate about that football team. You have the Texans down in Houston, but as far as Texas is a huge state. You can put another team down there and have just as big of a market as a city in a state by itself. Mm-hmm. So I definitely like the idea of San Antonio, and I think that a team could really thrive there with passionate fans.
You're looking to be
not so fast, my friend. I will give you the fact that they do have the Alamo Dome, and
which is gorgeous. I'm about to say it is gorgeous.
Very underrated stadium. It's indoors. It's always a plus, at least for
they're Texas,
but whatever. They play the Army All-American High School game there. They have the Alamo Bowl, obviously.
Notre Dame's played a couple games there over the last couple of years. And they drew decently well.
Yeah. So, but my concern is that with my concerns, plural, at the time of year where this season's going to be played, prime Spurs season. And like you said, they love their Spurs. Their Spurs have been there. Their Spurs have won. They are an established organization and a successful one at that. So if you were to try and put an organization that's a part of a league that, like I said before, is almost an expansion and failed once, It's going to be tough to get some attention. I understand that that the Spurs are the only team in town.
Yeah.
But here's my biggest iffy part about this. Not only are there two teams in Texas already, one of those teams is America's team.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
that's my
go
point.
ahead,
I think Dallas is when you think Texas, you do think football. High school football is huge.
High school also, yes.
Possibly the biggest state for high school football in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look into college. There's college teams all over.
Texas,
half the Big 12's in that state.
Okay, maybe.
In Texas. So I just don't see this working. Another team there. I mean, Houston, yeah, they root for the Texans, but beyond that, it's Dallas, and it's America's team.
Let me ask you guys this. You and Adam both brought up Cleveland, and you said about the Spurs. To me, I don't really see much of a difference between Cleveland and San Antonio in that aspect. Let me get your opinion on that. But as far as like basketball teams, because you said the Spurs dominate Cleveland. The Spurs dominate San Antonio. The Cavaliers at that time of year also dominate Cleveland, but you guys said that Cleveland would be your number one market. Is there going to be much of a difference between those two cities in that aspect?
Yeah, I think there will be, just because you look at how good the Spurs have been in the 21st century, and just how they're consistently a winner. Like the Spurs are kind of like the New England Patriots of the NBA, just how consistent they are. And you look at the Browns, how their last winning season was 2007. I just think you look at that from. I know the Browns wouldn't be playing like really at the same time where the XFL would be, but again, as I said earlier, Browns fans, they want a winner no matter how passionate they are. And if Cleveland, or if an XFL team goes to Cleveland, has the best chance of them being a winner, and I think some Browns fans might become fans of the XFL team because of that, especially if that XFL team in Cleveland is really good, watch out.
I think there is a difference between the two cities because of this reason. Will, you touched upon it. Cleveland is, as you mentioned, similar to Pittsburgh. They're blue collar. They're a sports town.
Yeah.
They have multiple sports teams. They root for the Indians. They root for the Cavs, and they also root for the Browns. San Antonio only has the Spurs. So it's not like they breed sports every single day. They breed basketball for X amount of months out of the year. There's continuously a sport in Cleveland, as there is in some other cities. So I think the fan base would be more passionate about an XFL team in Cleveland.
And you've never seen the Spurs fan base be one of the most, I don't know how to put it, enthusiastic or rabid or, intimidating. The
They're just
Spurs,
loyal, basically.
they're loyal. And how easy is it to be loyal to a good team?
Yeah.
Like you said, they're basically the Patriots of the NBA. They just lost their Tom Brady to Tim Duncan in retirement a few years back. But my point is that the only thing that Cleveland has going against them is that if it's a 10-week season to start, and that's just to start out, that's 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So by the time we get to March, that'll be the playoffs. March comes around, you get Indian spring training. That's the only thing that San Antonio has going for them as opposed to Cleveland. But I still think that the Browns won't be in contention by that point. I think that the XFL has a better chance of succeeding in Cleveland. I'm not saying it can't compete in San Antonio.
I agree with you.
But I think that if you're going to get a better fan base and a better revenue of funds and fans, I think Cleveland's the way to go over San Antonio.
I think the only way, if you put an XFL team in San Antonio, you get a lot of fans for that team is if they're good like right away within the first or 2 years. Because say they don't have many wins in the first 2 seasons, do you really think many people in San Antonio will start paying attention to that team in the XFL? I don't think so. They'll just stay loyal to the Spurs.
Hang on, let me touch on that 1 second. You said that they won't be loyal if they're good. Do you think other cities in the XFL will have that same problem as well? That their team's 2-6 in the XFL and they're just not going to go? Do you think other cities will have that problem?
What was the Browns' record this year?
Yeah, but
people still care.
Yeah, but the Browns have been there since the 50s. They have all that history and tradition. I'm just saying for a start.
I know. I mean, because you could make that argument against. You see it with arena football quite often, to be honest with you. These teams don't catch on.
And arena football is a little bit different.
I understand that too, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that don't get me wrong, it's hard to root for a bad team, especially if it's in not only an expansion team, but an expansion league. I'm using that. I'm sounding like a broken record here, but it's true. What I'm saying is that if your team is good, all football fans above the age of, I don't know, let's just say 35, right? Most of them pick up a newspaper or read some sort of news outlet. And if you're a sports fan, especially you watch ESPN, read the sports section of the newspaper or whatever you watch or however you get your news. If you see that your XFL team's doing good, you're like,
yeah,
all right. Yeah. And then you read the next page and it says the Browns lost their 7th straight game.
Yeah.
I hate to pick on the Browns, by the way. Still like and share if you're a Browns fan. We'll be nicer. I will be nicer. But I'm just being a realist here. If the one team's struggling and the other team's not, winning trumps losing. Winning trumps losing. Trumps losing.
My biggest thing about San Antonio is if you look at the layout of the country and the fact that there's only going to be 8 teams, you might have 2 or 3 teams out west, 2 or 3 teams up north. If you put a team in San Antonio or anywhere in Texas, really, you could have the possibility to reach almost the entire South with that one team. I mean, look, again, sorry, Browns fans, but a lot of people in Cleveland, if you weren't raised in a true Browns fan home, you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's in Ohio.
Or the Cincinnati
Or the
Bengals.
Or the Cincinnati Bengals.
Or the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, or any other team. But you have a lot of reach when it comes to teams if there's not a competing team around that. So I think, if you put a team in New York, then you have teams up north that are going to compete for each other. That leaves the South wide open.
Yeah.
1 or 2 teams maybe in the South. So I think that South team will have a lot of outreach as far as not just in their city, but outside.
Go ahead,
I
Adam.
feel like back to what Dylan said about the best market for an XFL team in Orlando. Like thinking of people in Orlando will catch on to, like, say if that XFL team was bad for the first 2 years. Well, the only other professional sports team is the Magic, and the Magic have been pretty bad over the past couple of years, especially since Dwight Howard left. And I feel like, say there was an XFL team in Orlando, and say they weren't too good the first 2 years, honestly think fans will go over to the XFL team, maybe give them more of a chance because the Magic aren't that good unless the Magic get good in the next 2 years, but I don't see that happening. So from that standpoint, I think since the Magic, they're not doing so well now, I think fans will hop on the XFL team bandwagon and give them a chance. And I think Orlando will get more fans regardless of how good or bad they do in their first 2 years.
And see, Orlando's a good city because the first time the XFL was in Orlando, they drew 71% of the Citrus Bowl. Now, the Citrus Bowl had the top decks closed up, but still, they did the second best average attendance rate of stadium capacity of the original 18.
Orlando is also home to the national champions, Central Florida.
Oh my god.
So, okay, let me base it off of this. Of the 8 markets that were originally part of the XFL, because you guys have all pretty well said that Orlando would be a good market for Vince and company to go back to. Of the remaining 7 markets that were in the original XFL, and I'll name them here in a second, which one do you think would be best to go back to? San Francisco, New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Memphis, Birmingham, and Chicago. Dylan, we'll start with you this time.
One I had on my list, East Rutherford, Meadowlands area. I think you got to put a team in the New York, New Jersey area. I know there's the Jets, I know there's the Giants, but how are they doing these days? I think the XFL would have a chance. You got to get a team on the East Coast too, somewhere along there. I also had on here they weren't involved the first time. The DC area, even extending down into Virginia, like Richmond, another big metropolitan city
And I think-
that doesn't have any professional sports.
And I think DC would be a good place because they don't even have to play out at FedEx Field. They could play at RFK because nobody's right now occupying RFK Stadium, so they would have that place to themselves.
Right. So I think I think East Rutherford area for sure.
Yeah.
But I think you could consider that as a new destination
Okay.
as well.
Go ahead.
I would say that all of those cities, except one to me, sounds perfectly fine.
Okay.
I agree with Dylan. I think New York could be very good because just for the media outlet. It doesn't really matter how the Jets and Giants are doing because the XFL, they're not trying to look at the NFL, and the NFL ain't trying to look at the XFL.
Yeah, Vince says he doesn't want to compete with.
He doesn't.
He wants to be his own little entity.
So with that being said,
because that was one of his biggest mistakes the first time around. He went right at the NFL and he got squashed like a bug.
So with that being said, he shouldn't care about where if there's two teams there or not. I know you mentioned success. I'm basing all of my statements in this first episode off, hey, we're 2 years behind, or we're 2 years ahead, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
I think Birmingham would be an absolute perfect place because it's a sleeper town. Think about UAB for a second.
Okay.
Right? What happened to UAB's football program?
It went by. It went see by.
They went by. What happens when they come back? They had a very successful season. They had basically the whole city behind them. Just imagine if you put an actual professional franchise first season in the mix, right?
Yeah.
They'll get the backup. It's all about money.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel. It's all about money. But I'm not saying he's going to Birmingham if they go there, but that's 2 years ahead. But I think Birmingham could be it's a sleeper pick. The one town I said isn't going to work again, Vegas. It's not going to work. The Raiders will be fresh, new there, and that was the prime. It seemed like the prime city the first time.
Yeah, because nobody was in Vegas at that point. Now, two of the four major sports leagues will already be in Vegas.
Don't forget the Golden Knights too.
With a rumor that the NBA may be going there in the next level of expansion. Drew, let me get your take on that. Okay.
I agree with Ed here. I really like Birmingham
Okay.
as just a prime destination. Really, I mean, by the time the season begins, Alabama's done, and Alabama, rules the state.
Alabama and Auburn are the two head
Yeah.
lunches down there.
Exactly. Roll Tide, War Eagle. I think you could get those fans who are nuts about their football, like insane. The guy poisoned the trees. They're crazy about football down there. I really think it's a perfect spot, and I definitely, I could compete with big areas who are sharing, sharing fan bases. Great spot.
I didn't even touch on I didn't even touch on both of those colleges. I went straight to University of
The-
Alabama.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Drew on both of those stances.
Adam, let me get your thoughts on this because I haven't heard much from you on this.
I'm going to go with San Francisco because, the NFL team 49ers are honestly kind of in the same situation as, the Browns, as what we said earlier. The Niners are on the decline. But the Niners, they still have passionate fans for, their history of all their 5 Super Bowls. But I feel like if the XFL goes to San Francisco, it has a chance for another winner for that city instead of the Niners, who are just lousy now. And they might be better, but we'll see. But I think just a lot of fans will be optimistic if an XFL team comes to San Francisco. They have the Giants, which will be starting at that point. But I think the XFL could do pretty well in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, the 8 markets that were in the original league did the best of all 8 teams in terms of attendance.
See, I mean, it's hard to argue with statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers never lie, but man, it's so hard for me to think that those San Francisco 49ers fans would leave.
But I'm not saying that they have to
not leave, but pay attention to anyone else.
Yeah.
Plus,
they've got the Warriors around. I don't know
the Warriors
how
are going to San Francisco here pretty soon.
Huh?
The Warriors are going to San Francisco pretty soon.
I don't know what I think of San Francisco because they originally, in the first time, they played at the at AT&T Park, the baseball stadium. They drew very well, surprisingly. For me, of those 8 teams, I think the one market that's been left out for me is Chicago. Chicago is always been a big football city. They've always been passionate about the Bears for as long as
Bears.
Not Bears. For me, I think Chicago is a great destination. 3rd largest city in the U.S. Not a whole lot of major cities within the couple 100-mile range. I think Chicago, if you put a team in the XFL in Chicago, I think that they could draw very well. I see Adam shaking his head. I'll come back to you in a second, Drew. I see you're shaking your head. What are your thoughts on Chicago?
I disagree because we all know how crazy Cubs fans are. I mean, Drew, you told me multiple times how much you hate Cubs fans because how passionate
Cubs
they
fans
are.
like and subscribe.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
But then, and also, you got the Chicago Blackhawks too, which they'll be in playoff season too, and they're a lot of passionate fans too. I just feel like with those 2 teams especially, I don't think they'll thrive well to get fans' attention for a Chicago team or an XFL team in Chicago because Cubs fans are really passionate and Blackhawk fans are very passionate too.
But see, Chicago's the biggest city in the Midwest, and Midwest is big town football. They love their college football in the Midwest. I think that success could translate into the XFL.
Big Ten
Because
country.
the XFL is going to be drawing some fans from all sorts of different leagues. They're going to be drawing fans from college football, the NFL, arena football, the CFL. That's what Vince is trying to do, is get a lot of those fans from all four of
Chip
those
away.
leagues to come. Yeah, just chip away. All right. We'll go back. We'll touch on markets that have NFL teams but weren't a part of the original XFL. What do you guys think would be the one market that would do well in this new XFL?
Right now, I think another very successful option to target would be Oakland. Now, you have to watch how many teams you put in the West.
Yeah.
In the original XFL, there were 2 teams out west, on the West Coast at least. There was Los Angeles and what was the other?
San Francisco. And then Vegas is only 100 miles
Yeah.
from the coast.
So I think that if you double up again, like they did last time, and go San Diego, Oakland, that'll be another franchise that'll be another city whose franchise went went over to Vegas. So I think if you're going to do 2, if you want to do 2 in California again, I think it's better to go Oakland, San Diego, because those are 2 hungry cities for football.
I know they're never going to move because they're one of the more historic franchises in NFL history. I think this is one of those instances where they got to go straight for the jugular. Kansas City.
Really?
Kansas City hasn't won a home playoff game since the 90s.
Yeah.
These fans are getting heated,
Aggravating.
frustrated. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the
You
reason-
talk about snake-bitten franchises. I'll let you speak in a second. Snake-bitten franchises, it's one thing to just straight out be terrible. It's another thing to get there, but never get what you're actually going
get the brass ring.
Right.
It's in the Midwest. That's what we were talking about before.
That's exactly
It's
right.
the Midwest region is a location that I think would thrive with some XFL teams. I think you have to put a couple more teams out west. I think you need to try to balance it, though. I honestly do, for it to be successful. 3 or 4 out west, and then the remaining maybe trickle 1 in the Midwest somewhere, and then the rest on the east. I just don't see how you can load one side versus the other and expect the fan base to catch on from one side of the country.
And I think that's one of the things that the original XFL did well. They had balance. They had a couple teams out west, a couple teams in the Midwest, a couple teams in the South, a couple teams up north. They did a very good job of balancing their markets.
Yeah, these executives that McMahon's going to hire, and him included, they're no idiots.
Yeah.
They know business. They know where to put them. I mean, like Dylan said, the Midwest is prime football country. I mean, I know that's Big Ten.
Yeah, Big Ten. Well, that going more into Kansas City is going into more Big 12.
Big
SEC.
12, yeah, okay. But still, I just think that if you want to move, if you're talking cities in the Midwest, I think it's Kansas City. Like you said, Chicago maybe could work. And I thought maybe Milwaukee. I didn't bring them up.
Well, yeah, they're.
But we'll see. I'm just wanted to throw that out there for opinions. But yeah, I think we could. I guess we'll find out. But I totally agree with Drew in the stance of spreading out the wealth.
Now, Dylan, I know you talked about the Midwest being a hotbed. Are you in agreement with Ed that Kansas City, Chicago?
I think St. Louis is a contender too because they lost the Rams.
Yeah,
and those fans really came together. That organization was built up in St. Louis, and they did a very nice job after once it started there. And then they left,
And they've always had passionate fans for the
and they have exactly, and they stole the dome.
Yeah, they still have the
They
dome.
still have the
I know that they had always talked about renovating the dome. Maybe that Vince can get people to talk with them, renovate the dome, and that would be a nice place for the XFL.
Don't get me wrong, baseball is definitely the top sport in St. Louis, and has been
football
for
did
some
very
time,
well
but
for
it did
itself.
well there. Exactly.
Jeff Fisher always got those 7 and 9 teams to get attendance.
Let me
And
throw-
Because the NFC West was such a tough division.
What do you ask? Because I know you wanted to say something. What's your prime NFL, non-XFL 2001 market?
Well, I was going to say St. Louis also, basically because of the same reasons that Dylan had. But I'll bring up your point, Ed, about what you said about Milwaukee, because I think that would be a great city for XFL, because you look at how passionate Green Bay Packers fans are, and when the XFL is going on, it won't be during prime Packer season, and them fans up there, they just love football. And I feel like if you get another team up in Milwaukee, those fans, I think, might be probably not as passionate as they are with their Packers, but they'll be pretty passionate, I think, for a new XFL team.
All right, guys. A lot of good cities that the XFL can go to.
Hi, I'm panelist Dylan Cleveland. Be sure to tune in to our next podcast being posted soon. And also follow us on all social media platforms at Our XFL.
Hello, everyone. I'm panelist Ed Diorio. I want to thank you for watching this episode, and please like, follow, and subscribe to at Our XFL. Thank you.
Now we'll go into a little bit of who do you guys think that network-wise and maybe even streaming service-wise is going to broadcast the games? Dylan, I'll start with you down there. Who do you think's the front runner to get the XFL coverage?
I'm going with ESPN. I know I'm going to get some eye rolls or what have you, but let's face it, NBC had it the first time, so that's a pretty big network to have it. Obviously, with it being a flop, I highly doubt that they'll want to be in the running for a second crack at it. So I don't see them coming.
And I think it's a little bit of a different ownership model this time, because the first time it was Vince and Dick Ebersol 50-50. It was the WWF, the NBC. This time it's just Vince on his own, separate from his wrestling corporation.
Correct.
So I think it's going to be a little bit different.
You bring up an interesting point, though, about the streaming services, and we see things, changing so often. What was it? The MLB playoffs this year had YouTube TV as the
World
sponsors
Series,
for the World Series. So I think those things, plus, again, like Ed said, this is episode 1. This is 2 years down the road. Who knows? He signed that agreement with Alpha Entertainment, who's going to help him out with this.
Well, yeah, that's his corporation that he funded the XFL.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But they might create something, is what my point is. So I think it could completely be, right now it's way too wide open, but if we're talking specific networks, I don't see a reason that ESPN doesn't go for it.
Why do you think ESPN is such a good fit for the XFL?
I don't know if it's so much of a good fit, because I don't know if any of these networks would want what it was, because of how derogatory and negative it became. But if you're looking at it with an open mind and going into it this time with, this is a legitimate league, and they're going to really try to put football out there for the fans, why wouldn't you want to try to publicize that? And ESPN, as the worldwide leader in sports, I personally feel that ESPN has started to do some things that just have hurt themselves.
Yeah.
I think some of the people they're bringing in as talents and analysts, I think are, they're going with the former player track, I think, a little bit too much. They're overkilling it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as some other networks, ABC,
ABC,
exactly. They're kind of, they're linked. CBS, like you mentioned, they're the shirt and tie.
Yeah, shirt and tie. I just don't see CBS.
And if you're keeping politics out of it, none of those other networks are going to have a crack at it, as, obviously the political networks. But back to ESPN, why not? They need something, I think, because I think they are falling and going downhill in some aspects. I think this could pick them back up.
Adam, go ahead.
I might get some eyes rolled at this one. I'm going to say USA, because of the simple fact that Monday Night Raw is on USA, and it's been on USA for a long time. And since Vince McMahon is the chairman of WWE, and you have to think that he has a good relationship with USA, because Monday Night Raw has been on there for a long time.
Yeah, I think it went back to USA, because it was originally on in the 90s, and then Vince went back in 2005. So he's had a long-standing agreement with USA.
Yeah, and you think USA might want to pick up some sports on their channels to have more people watch it, because I know they've had some Premier League soccer games on USA, but that's really about it. I just think if they go to USA, it'd just be a good choice for people who want a different channel option for people who want to watch sports, instead of maybe people who are getting sick of ESPN, instead of them being on ESPN. And yeah, you might want to hire broadcasters, but I'm sure there's plenty of broadcasters out there that want to do the XFL besides exactly, all of us. There's 3 sports broadcasting majors here, so I think it'd be good job opportunities for people too. And I just think with Vince McMahon, or with Monday Night Raw being on USA, I think XFL can be on USA also.
Okay, I like that theory.
I'm going to give you my main pick, and
Okay.
then I'm going to give you a sleeper that I also think could work. My main pick to pick up the league that is going to, I know Vince McMahon says he doesn't want to challenge the NFL, but let's be honest here. It's the only thing it's going to be compared to.
Yeah.
It's the only thing, it's the only comparison. What's the only other comparison to ESPN as far as a sports carrier of all sports?
Fox Sports 1.
Fox Sports 1. I think if Fox Sports 1 picks up the XFL, they love their not only young analysts, but bringing back players and coaches from those organizations, There are old XFL coaches and players out there. Bring Tommy Maddox back. Bring He Hate Me back. Bring them all back. That's what Fox Sports 1 encourages and does best. So I think that FS1, Fox does a really good job of carrying NFL games in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they could do a very good job with not only graphics, they have broadcasters, I'm sure they do, waiting in the wings, like Adam said, more job opportunities. I think Fox Sports has a wide coverage, and I think if Fox Sports wants to keep trying to keep pace with ESPN, so I know that's exactly what they want to do. Everyone's going to say that's not what they tried to, but let's be real here, people. If they want to try and keep pace, if the XFL becomes bigger than what we may think, and FS1's part of the reason why it gets on an even playing field.
Okay.
So
Let me ask you this.
I wanted to pose a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Also. So, do you think a network that carries the NFL would want to do that internally to themselves and have two different brands of football, televising both of them, fighting against each other?
I know they would.
ratings?
I know that they would want to carry both just for money's sake, but
One's going to
Let's-
take a hit for
one's
the
gonna.
next
I mean, I
one
know.
off the ground.
I understand that. But Fox, I know Fox had this game of the week, and I know they have Michael Strahan, Terry Bradshaw. They do well with the NFL. But I'm not, I mean, I know that Fox is a whole corporation, and Fox Sports 1 is connected to that. But I think that FS1 and ESPN, they don't butt heads really. And I don't think sports leagues butt heads with whoever the media outlets are. I think that FS1 has a good chance of picking up the XFL, and I don't know what they do with the NFL. I'm not a business person. I'll be the first to tell you that, and I don't know how all the contracts and read the fine print. I don't know how all that works. But what I do know is that if the FS1 wants to compete with ESPN, they got to do it somehow, and I don't think they're catching them right now. If the XFL is a good route, is getting as much hype as it is right now, and we started this whole podcast.
Yeah.
There's got to be something to it.
Let me ask you that. So FS1 has started to dabble in other sports leagues away from the Big Four. They did Ice Cube's Big 3 basketball league. Now they didn't air any of those games live. They were tape delayed, edited, and then thrown out there in a 3-hour window every week. Do you think that if FS1 got the games that they would do something similar to that, or would they air all those games live?
Yes, they would air them live, I think, because Big 3 basketball, 3-on-3 basketball, a league like that had never happened.
Mm-hmm.
The XFL has happened. It's basically the same sport of football. It's not like he's changing it to a 75-yard surface, more narrow field, and goalposts as wide as this. That's not the point. It's still football. Football that is very similar to NFL football, if not the same. I know he said he wants to change some things, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that all the hype around it, if the XFL pushes and gives the NFL a run for its money, FS1 must be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because FS1 is trying to catch ESPN. And the point I wanted to make about why ESPN won't pick it up is because they already have Monday Night Football. The XFL probably won't want ESPN. You know why? ESPN is one of the most political sports-related networks there is. We talk about LeVar Ball like he's the president. When meanwhile, he has 3 sons who play basketball. 2 of them are in Lithuania. Who cares? I mean, don't get me wrong. The man is a great he's a good businessman. He's a good promoter. But I don't care about a guy whose 2 sons are playing basketball in Lithuania and the one's a rookie in the NBA because he was the 2nd overall pick. You know how many 2nd overall picks there are every year? 1. They're going to keep coming out.
You better sleep with one eye open.
Yeah,
Drew,
I don't care.
Drew is
Got a big baller boy over here. But anyway, what I'm saying is that
LeVar Ball, give us a follow. Jeez. Never lost. Undefeated, never lost. Go ahead.
back to the point at hand here. I think that ESPN cares too much about its big figures that obviously get revenue, like LeBron James, LeVar Ball, everybody. The XFL isn't going to. It's going to start out popular, but it's got to sustain. And ESPN's not going to take that risk. I don't think.
See, the thing about ESPN is you talk about figures like LeBron, LeVar. Vince McMahon is one of those figures. He has been over the last 20 years. When you think of the company he started, WWE, one of the first people you think of is Vince McMahon, a power walking down in that ring. He's a promoter. He's said some outlandish things that he's put his name out there. And a lot of people know Vince. So, go ahead, Dylan. I know you want to say something.
And depending on who he signs into this league, which we're going to get into in another episode, the players, of course,
Yeah.
a big part of the league. Depending on who he signs into, they're going to be this. They might be the same way as him,
Yeah.
and the same way as these other people that ESPN love to promote.
Yeah.
So I could see that part of it going into that lane very nicely for ESPN. But I completely understand your point against ESPN as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Drew.
Here's my thing, and this has been a battle for the past 2 years as far as, on-air people on shows moving from ESPN to FS1.
Yeah.
Also, you have the whole idea of Monday Night Football, which you brought up, but it's been on the downgrade, and they just lost their big main attraction, John Gruden, who's going to be the coach of the Raiders. No one watches Monday Night Football for Sean McDonough, as much as I love you, Sean. They watch it for this guy, right, John? Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Monday Night Football isn't getting any better anytime soon, I don't think, unless they create a flex schedule where they put the best game of the week on Monday Night Football.
And I think that has to do with so many night games. They
Exactly.
Thursday night,
You know what?
Saturday, Saturday night.
I think
They're going to go to Wednesday night.
I think everything but Sunday games, and that's another thing to bring into the discussion possibly when these games are going to be taking place for the XFL, as they said, Sunday. You're directly competing against the NFL, and those games during the week, we've seen Thursday Night Football is awful. It's terrible.
But it still draws because it's the NFL.
draws
You get 10 million people to watch the NFL.
But name a game this season besides your one or two that you get that are the good football games.
Yeah.
Let me throw this at you.
Okay.
So, most of us here, most of you at home, have watched the video that led into Vince McMahon's press conference about the XFL.
Yeah.
And one of the points that they highlighted that we haven't spoken about yet is the fan interaction with the game. They mentioned fantasy football. They mentioned bets.
Okay.
And Alpha Entertainment, they have 2 years to work something up now. What if they make an app? What if they make a website? You can watch the games. You can bet on them in live time. You can check your fantasy XFL football all in one place.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good strategy. I think it's something that I'm sure Vince has, considered. Yeah, because
there's so much betting on sports.
And
It
why-
would be about half stupid to not tap into that. He'd be the first league to basically say, all right, you can bet on us. Because all those four major sports kind of shy away from it.
Exactly.
He'd be the first to almost say, all right, you can bet on us.
Absolutely.
We're fine with that.
And another thing is, even the NHL had problems trying to get their brand on TV. NBC, they almost had to pay NBC to broadcast hockey, the NHL. So I think that you're going to have a hard time having a company say, oh yeah, XFL, we'll broadcast your games for free. We'll take that on. We want to make money off of you.
Especially after the way it played
Yeah,
out the
exactly.
first time. That's why
Exactly.
I think NBC's automatically out of the conversation.
It's a gamble. So if you create your own live streaming service, you see a lot of these big four leagues streaming their games. It's the 21st century. It's the live stream era. I think if you create your own live streaming service that you can package your betting in, that's only going to bring in more money. You package your fantasy football in, which everyone in this country and their mother plays fantasy football. I think it's great.
I think you're onto something with their own streaming service because Vince has experience doing his own streaming service, and it kind of started that streaming process with the WWE Network.
Plus, that supports a huge part of his message, and it is to keep the XFL a separate entity from everything else.
So you don't think he would put it on the WWE Network? Do you guys do anything
I
else
don't.
think that he would?
I don't think he would.
I didn't think he would.
He doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, I don't think, website XFL.
And if he wants to, like I said, keep it a different entity, why wouldn't you start your own streaming service?
Yeah.
And that's going to lead into a marketing discussion that you can have. That's going to target the young people, the younger generations. Plus, you're also going to have the older people who like the XFL the first time or want to give it another chance. They're going to be drawn into it as well.
My sleeper network, I never actually gave it just because of the side questions. I'm sorry, but Turner Sports. I think Turner Sports, they cover games here and there. They cover playoff games. They cover good NBA Thursday night games. They cover baseball playoffs.
The PGA Championship.
PGA Championship. March Madness.
Yeah.
They get the big events and they have the money to buy it out. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up the XFL to try and get some more revenue in the football aspect because I don't think they have a whole lot there.
Turner Sports has been very good with sports for the last 20, 25 years. The only thing that scares me about TNT, Turner Sports, TBS is Vince had the war of all wars with Turner Sports in the 90s. They tried to put him out of business. They tried to ruin his life. I just don't think that he would ever do business with them after what happened in the 90s.
I agree.
But I think that if they did get the XFL, they would do a great job with it because they do a great job with the NBA.
All the sports.
All those
Right.
sports, they do a very good job.
Right. That's why it's a sleeper picking on the main.
Okay. All right, guys, we'll finish up with, do you guys think that the XFL will succeed? Honest opinion. Ed, let's start with you.
I think the XFL will get to a point. It's gonna be a gray area for me. It's gonna be somewhere between. It's gonna be better than leagues like Arena Football and Canadian Football, but it's not gonna reach the one of the four majors. I mean, I know football is one of the four major sports. It's not gonna reach one of the four major sports leagues.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a fifth one.
Do you think Vince would be okay with being like a secondary football league? Or do you think that Vince has a massive ego? He's a competitor. He wants to be the best at everything he does. Do you think he would be okay with being the second best at football?
The way that press conference was taken first, okay? I know what kind of personality the man has.
Yeah.
I know what kind of person the man is. I don't know him personally, but I know, from all the Vince McMahon clips, from all of the promotions that he's done before, I think the way he carried himself in that press conference, as long as he's making money, as long as the fans are happy, for the most part, you can't please everybody, I think he'll be okay with it.
Adam?
I think if Vince McMahon is a man of his word and promises everything that he did in his opening press conference, I think the XFL has the capability to be very successful because he mentioned no politics whatsoever, no players that have ever had a criminal record, which is good because you see in the NFL a lot of good players get into trouble and they affect their teams. Like, example, Ezekiel Elliott had a 6-game suspension. Cowboys didn't make the playoffs because he decided to be an idiot. So I think if you eliminate players like that in the XFL, just a lot of fans will like that. How this is a league, we're a clean league. None of the players really don't do anything to get themselves into trouble. And also, with a political standpoint, again, I feel like with all the politics that happen in the NFL, that take what happened with the Steelers week 3, how that was just very blown out of proportion and a big misunderstanding. I saw videos of Steelers fans burning their jerseys saying they didn't want to be Steelers fans anymore because of that.
Yeah.
I just feel like if that doesn't happen in the XFL, they won't lose much fans. They'll definitely gain more fans than lose them because of that. Because Vince McMahon is trying to eliminate all the negatives, things that has ruined the NFL over the past 2 years. And if he does that, the XFL can go nowhere but up, I think.
Okay. Dylan, your thoughts?
I think that it has the capability to be a lot better than what it was the first time around. I think things.
I don't think it could do much worse.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot.
If they go down, they're in trouble.
I don't think it takes over as the major football league. I think it scares the NFL at its peak. I don't know when that peak will be. I don't know if it'll be 5 years, 10 years. I think it'll be around long enough, though, that it scares the NFL.
Do you think it would ever get to the point that it would be like the AFL in the 60s and they never merge the two leagues? Do you think it would ever get to that point?
No, because I think that the NFL is still too big of an
Yeah.
entity in itself.
Okay.
And it depends what kind of brand of football it is. If it, as Adam said, if Vince does everything he promises, then it's going to give it, I really think it'll give it a good run. If they keep it clean and they keep it to football and they keep it about the fans, then it's going to be good and it'll be successful. If it doesn't, it could flop in a year.
Yeah, it could go back to square one. Drew?
Right.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the NFL, when it gets scared, it's if you can't beat them, join them. That's how the saying goes. The AFL was when they beat the NFL in the Super Bowl III.
Yeah.
All know Joe Namath. We're gonna win. I guarantee it.
Well, and
It
the
went-
merger had already happened at that point.
It had,
That's
but it
how
was
the AFL
still.
was up and
It
up,
wasn't
right?
the NFL.
Yeah.
It was the AFL
The NFL.
and the NFL, right? If the XFL scares the NFL doesn't mind personalities. They don't. We saw them change the
They love
celebration. Well, we saw them change the celebration rule this year. We've seen so many personalities, and they're the ones we love as
Yeah.
fans. They keep the game entertaining. If the XFL gets to the point, like Dylan said, where it scares the NFL, I could see the NFL making a pitch and saying, "Hey, bring a few, let's bring like 4 teams, 6 teams our way,
And we'll just
we'll
give you your money. And,
right.
Yeah.
And you can be a part of this too."
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think it'll get to that point, but if, like Dylan said, if it does, I could definitely see a merger.
Drew, you think it'll be successful?
I do actually think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to be very successful. Let's look at the current state of the NFL right now.
Okay.
Just the past couple of years. You've had stories go year and a half long on whether it be Tom Brady and Deflategate. People got sick of hearing about that. You had the Ray Rice issue. People were sickened when it happened. They were sickened again when they saw the video. They were sickened again when they saw the NFL's punishment for the video. That hurt the NFL tremendously. You have all of these other allegations, whether it be domestic violence, whatever, that the NFL has been tarnished for because it's no longer a family game. Let's be real. Well, some of the players that they trot out there, it's no longer a family game.
Vontez perfect.
Vontez Perfect is a perfect example.
Sorry, Cincinnati.
Let's look at
Like and subscribe and follow.
Let's look currently. Just the past couple of weeks. Too many infractions. Another thing that Vince hit on in that video. Too many infractions. People are sick of seeing games determined by officiating.
Yeah.
Sick of it.
Yeah.
If you keep the infractions to a minimum, you attract more fans.
And
We
Jesse,
can
and Jesse
talk
James
about-
caught it.
We can talk about gameplay in another episode, but I think for me, I think that the XFL can succeed to a point. I don't think that they'll get to the top echelons of sports. They won't get to that top 4. They probably won't even get to like the level where like the PGA Tour, NASCAR,
Masters.
those sports, but they can carve a niche for themselves as the spring football league. And if they can do that, for me, the XFL will be a success.
It's going to be for the people who don't like baseball.
And
I disagree.
and
I love baseball, and I'm very excited about
and
it.
Well, there are the people that say, "Oh, baseball's America's pastime." Well, if you put the XFL in there, that's America's pastime for football, right?
Yeah.
For football season. If you put a football league when football ain't around, there's America's pastime for the people that don't like baseball.
And I think other football leagues have shown in previous years that spring football works. The USFL did very well for itself, and then they got greedy and tried to move to the fall, and the wheels fell off. But I think spring football has a place. It will never get to the level that the NFL is, but I think they can carve a nice little spot for themselves.
Fall is just football time.
Yeah.
College football, high school football, and NFL all going. Friday night you go see your high school. Saturday you cheer for your favorite college, and Sunday you cheer for your NFL. There's your whole weekend.
And I think some people are so passionate about football that they want to watch football every day of the year. And the XFL can target those.
You know where those people are? They're in the cities that go to their high school game on Friday, they watch their college on Saturday, and their NFL team on Sunday. And if they go to those cities, it'll be successful during the spring months because those football junkies, include all of us in Western Pennsylvania, they
They'll
want
do very
football
well.
as much as they can.
Here's my final thought.
Okay.
Any league with a persona to start the charge, like Vince McMahon, any league, any entity that can get 5 college students to sit around and talk about a league that's 2 years away still
on a Saturday night.
has a chance to succeed in the United States of America if they do it right.
And I think it's because people like us were excited because not only are we sports junkies, but we want to see
Something different.
We want to see something different.
Yes.
The NFL has gotten so, as Drew mentioned, all those points. it turns. I'll be honest. There's Sundays that it turns me off. I don't want to watch the game, but I do because I'm a football guy and I'm a proud Steeler fan. But it's things like that are going to draw these different crowds of people. It's going to be, if they can draw different crowds of people, then I think that's another reason it will be successful.
All right.
We shall see.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. You guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Like the channel. Leave a comment if you think we should do something different. Give us ideas for our next couple episodes. And share with your friends. That's the only way that the XFL is going to become a great league, is if you share. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.